Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another quick edition of Wade Watches. This is not an out of theater review, just a belated review of Blue Beetle. I did actually see Blue Beetle when it first came out opening weekend, so a couple of weeks back, and I honestly just don't really have much to say about it, so I just didn't feel compelled to see it right away. Also, I happened to see Blue Beetle on the same day that I watched the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. I did review that movie because I felt it was worth reviewing. So you can probably, from that alone, you can probably tell where more or less where this very quick review is going to be going, and you will be right. So watching Blue Beetle, honestly, was like for me watching Spider-Man Homecoming for the first time. What Blue Beetle ended up being was exactly how I thought when I like in 2017. Shit, that's 6 years ago now. 6 years ago, that's how I felt Spider-Man Homecoming was going to be going in. The trailers, at the time, I thought that the trailers showed too much, and I just thought like, oh, this is just going to be a generic, kind of coming of age Spider-Man story. They're not gonna do anything new, and Tom Holland is already gonna wear out his welcome with me, and I was floored by just how, um, just how complex of a Spider-Man movie Homecoming actually turned out to be. The villain wasn't some shallow, one-dimensional douchebag. You actually felt sympathetic for Michael Keaton's turn as the Vulture, and Tom Holland's take on Spider-Man in that movie was actually an improvement. On the portrayal that on his debut in Civil War. They added layers to his character. It was a coming of age tale. It definitely felt more like an authentic high school and not movie high school where everybody looked 30 years old. But not only that, but it was like a legitimate, and actually like heartfelt to the point where there was a particular sequence where I teared up, coming of age story, and I thought it was just going to be this, basically another generic Spider-Man with the new actor and yet another reboot. I really did, but it took me by surprise. Blue Beetle, however, did everything that I expected to do and added no surprises whatsoever, and it really guts me to say that, man, because the thing is, Blue Beetle is not an A-list DC Comics character. He is not a character that I'm overly familiar with. Like many of you out there, if you've watched any of the DC animated features, you probably see him pop up in one or two things. Correct me if I'm wrong. I remember him specifically from Batman Brave and the Bold. He showed up a lot on that show. Think he was on Young Justice. He was definitely in one of the Teen Titans animated movies. But that's who Blue Beetle is to me. Just kind of a background character who pops up in a lot of different shows. So I was excited for this movie to really like give me more details on this character's origin story, his background, his powers, his capabilities, because I don't know a lot about Blue Beetle, and I legitimately was like excited to see what this character was all about. And I was hoping that the trailers, which did kind of look like just like, like this would just be an average comic book movie, would just be another case of misdirection, and the movie would turn out to be more badass than I ever could have anticipated. I really went in hoping for that, and it wasn't. Main thing the main complaint that I have about Blue Beetle is that Blue Beetle himself, aka Hyman Reyes, is not the main feature of this movie. It's his family. And the thing about this family is that they're just that cliche immigrant family that you've seen from a lot of different things. I really didn't find any of them particularly interesting. There are a couple of them that have a couple of funny lines, but everybody is exactly like the tropes that you think they are. George Lopez is pretty much playing himself, though he got one or two laughs out of me, but it's still just George Lopez being George Lopez, and everybody else is like exactly who you think they are going to be. It tries to have a message about living in poverty and the importance of like one's culture, the important, definitely the importance of family is a big theme in there. There's a lot of Latino culture in there, which is always great to see. Always also awesome to see some representation, but it's just shallow, surface level, and predictable. And these guys are the main focus of the movie, and not Blue Beetle himself. I think honestly, you don't really get much of Blue Beetle and his like full regalia kicking a lot of ass in this movie. To be honest, it's mostly about this family and how they're involved. And again, and I don't want to make it sound like they just annoyed the shit out of me, like they were like the worst characters ever, but they just weren't intriguing enough to justify them sidelining a titular character in his own movie. And also, it's man, like Ant Man. This movie just basically copied and pasted Ant Man in all the first ways, and that's all I'll say. But you probably already know how it's gonna go just by me saying that, and I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. Ant Man, copy and paste. Thankfully, I do like the first Ant Man, so while this movie was derivative, it wasn't a complete piece of crap. But it was basically just watching Ant-Man over and over again, especially when it comes to Susan Sarandon, who's the main villain in this movie. Her motivation is the same motivation as the villain in Ant-Man, and I'm sorry, I can't look past that. Um, Also, speaking of Susan Sarandon as a villain, same generic. Oh, I'm an evil business overlord who wants to make a shit ton of money, off of this one power, and she has a henchman who's, in movies like this, there's always like an evil corp Lex Luthor type who's less physical, and then a henchman who goes toe to toe with the hero. That's the case in this movie. Can't even remember the guy's name because he's mostly forgettable, except for one scene where I'm like, holy shit! If the movie had focused on more of this and have focused on this guy who's like physically going toe to toe with Blue Beetle, maybe I would have liked the villains better, but nope. We just have Susan Sarandon being a cackling evil businesswoman. I don't know, guys. This was not it. Blue Beetle was not it for me. There's some jokes that were funny. Some of the action was cool. Some of the when Blue Beetle is doing his thing and throwing down and showing off his powers, that was kind of badass in parts. And Blue Beetle himself, Hyman Reyes, that actor, I know he was on Cobra Kai, which I have not watched. I'm just not that big of a Karate Kid fan, but I've heard so many good things about it that maybe I will give it a watch one of these days. He does a fantastic job. He's good as the hero. You really feel for this guy. He really cares about his family. You can tell that they're his like he gets strength from them, and there's even some touching scenes with him interacting with his family that did kind of get me emotional. Didn't get me to the verge of tears or anything, but it really did touch me right here, because it was just really touching to see this very close bond he had with those guys. But other than that, this movie just doesn't it just checks off all those cliche boxes. Even like the cliche romance where there's no chemistry, it's just that they're both hot people, so they have to get together. That's in there too, Um, yeah, man. Yeah, Blue Beetle, passable comic book movie that doesn't really take any risks or do anything extraordinary, with a very obscure character that's just now being introduced to cinema. So, wrapping it up, I am going to give Blue Beetle a very generous 5 out of 10. I can't even give it a 6 out of 10 because it was just so predictable, man. I just saw where everything was headed, and I it was it there it just didn't really. I just sat there just kind of like, well, I guess that was kind of funny, but I just kind of sat there like, okay. there's nothing in it that justifies me notching it up 1 point to a 6. Not a single thing. And that's really a bummer, man, because these are the last days of the DC extended universe as we know before James Gunn reboots it. It's this, and we've gotten the Flash this year. We've gotten Blue Beetle. Last one, to my knowledge, is Aquaman: The Lost Kingdom, which is supposedly coming out in December. But with the strikes going on, that might get pushed back to along with Doom Part Two. So we'll see if that even comes out this year. But point is, that's it, and this doesn't even go out on a low note or a high note, just a note. Well, it's not the last thing, so I guess it doesn't go out on any note at all. But so far, I guess, because I thought the Flash was a slightly better, but this was just, painstakingly below average and generic, man. So yeah, 5 out of 10 for Blue Blue Beetle. Hopefully Aquaman in December, if it comes out, is at least a little bit better than this. This has been another edition of Wade Watches. I wish I was more excited. I wish I enjoyed what I saw a little bit more, but as is, and maybe I'll watch it again and like it a bit better. Who knows? But for now, I'm giving Blue Beetle a 5 out of 10. Been another movie review, and I will see you all next time. Peace.